thank you, Lord, for this meeting and this group of men and women that you have chosen to guide this city, Lord, as leadership. Lay your blessings upon them and let it flow out over the city as a whole. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Roll call. Mayor Christensen is gone today. Councilman Reeves is absent. We do have a quorum. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda as written. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Citizens' comments. Hearing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the May 19th meeting and appropriation ordinance number 1293.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Items of business. I think the first item is Mr. Kennedy with our 2024 audit.
Yes. Everybody had your copy of the 2024 audit. So the first thing I'll go over is the governance letter. It's the loose letter in front. It's stapled, and it's required requirement that being in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards to go over these issues. There are certain things that just are addressed. First one has to do with the audit findings, qualitative aspects of accounting practice. And basically, that's indicating that there were no new accounting policies adopted for 2024, and everything is consistent with the prior years. There are some things that are subject to estimate, and that in your case would be primarily accounts payable and encumbrances. And there are some things in the notes that are particularly sensitive to the financial statement, and that would be the accounting policies in Note A and the long-term debt in Note E. On the second page, we didn't have any difficulties encountered in performing the audit. And as far as correct and uncorrected misstatements, the only thing there are just recording accounts payable and payroll payable as of the end of the year and reversing those amounts from the previous year. We made some other adjustments just to reclassify accounts and to make small adjustments to balance things and to make reporting a little more compatible. As far as disagreements with management, we didn't have any. Management representations, representations made to us that everything is complete and accurate to the best of your knowledge. No consultations with other accountants. That's pretty much it. So, on the audit, on the bound portion of the report, on page 1 is the auditor's report. The first portion of that talks about is the adverse and unmodified opinions. The adverse portion of that is that your financial statements are not in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, but you are in compliance with the regulatory basis of accounting you've adopted, which is provided by the Kansas Municipal Accounting and Audit Guide. So, clean opinion on the basis of accounting that you've adopted. As far as the basis for adverse opinion, we indicate there that we did the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. And then flipping the page, on page 2, as far as matters giving rise to adverse opinion, basically it's saying there that you are you're not in accordance with GAAP, but you are in accordance, reporting in accordance with the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. Responsibilities of management would indicate that the financial statement is yours, that that's your responsibility, and to indicate that there are no going concern issues. Our responsibilities are bulleted there at the bottom of page 2. That would include exercising professional judgment, identifying risks of material misstatement, obtaining an understanding of internal control, and evaluating the appropriateness of your accounting policies, and that there are no going concern issues. Then the last portion of that on page 3 is indicating there is supplementary information and comparative information for 2023, and we believe it's also fairly stated. Financial statements on page 4. In summary, this indicates the unencumbered cash balances for the city for 2024, your beginning balances for each of your funds, the receipts for the funds, the expenditures that come in across the ending unencumbered cash. We add to that your accounts payable and encumbrances to equal your ending actual cash balances. So in total, left column, your total unencumbered cash at the beginning of the year was $4,264,000. You had receipts of $4,156,000, expenditures of $4,176,000. So your ending unencumbered cash was $4,244,000. So went down about $20,000, but really not a significant change at all. If you kind of go down through the funds, and you can take a look there and see the general fund did decrease about $100,000. We did anticipate that there would be $97,000 at the end of the year, and you're actually at 71. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that when we look on the 26 budget. On the special purpose funds, these are non-tax levying funds, but they're the first portion of their budgeted funds, the city's tax infrastructure and big well and so forth. And on those, you can see a lot of those had some increase in unencumbered cash. The city tax infrastructure fund went from 543 to 616, and big well is up, and we're going to be able to see those. We'll look at those more in detail back later on in the report. As far as non-budgeted special purpose funds, there's for a certain purpose, but they're not required to be budgeted. Some of the main ones there, equipment reserve had $169,000 at the beginning of the year, wound up with 180. Economic development started at 151, you add 45 to that, so you're at 196. And then some of the larger other funds there, tornado donation and tornado insurance funds, pretty significant balances still in those. The business funds would include your utility funds, the electric utility decreased in equity. Started at 316, at the end of the year you had a 114, and on that one we anticipated there'd be 284 at the end of the year, so that one also has a decrease from the beginning of the year, and also less than was anticipated for the 25 budget. The water utility fund went from 200 down to 145. We anticipated 103, so that was actually more than anticipated. And the sewage disposal went from 78 up to 82,000, and we anticipated only 48, so that was in pretty good shape. And then sanitation, really not much change there. And your reserve funds are shown there at the bottom for the electric reserve, the water principal and interest, sewage, sanitation, and meter deposits. So at the end of the year, your total unencumbered cash was $4,244,000, and ending actual cash was $4,485,000. The composition of that cash is on page 5. And looking at the notes, the significant accounting policy note is note A, indicate what the makeup of the city, 5-member council, and mayor. You do have a public building commission and the housing authority, which are not included in this report. The building commission is, that portion of it is included as far as the bond payments are concerned. The basis of presentation shows what the different funds that you have, including the general fund, and they're all defined there, special purpose and the business funds. We talked about the basis of accounting and the difference between that and GAAP in those 3, A3. The budget process is mentioned there in A4, and the calendar of events, and so we'll be working on that here in the next few weeks to get the 2026 budget prepared. There are several funds that are not budgeted, and those are listed there in A at the bottom of Note A4. Keep going here. Okay, on the note B, the deposits and investments, discusses the types of investments you're allowed to participate in, and then the risk of those that are associated with those deposits and how they are secured. Your deposits are all properly secured with FDIC insurance or by investments that are pledged by the banks in the city's name. The defined pension plan is the CAPERS plan that the employees participate in, as discussed in Note C. The cost to the city for that was $70,326 there at the bottom of page 9. The rate of contribution for 2024 was 9.26%. The unfunded portion of CAPERS that the state estimates belongs to the proportion amount that goes to the city is $674,000. That is not included anywhere in the financial statements, just a no disclosure for your information. So there are other long-term obligations. Those are primarily employee benefits, including health insurance, vacation, sick leave policies, death and disability portion of CAPERS, your comp time off plan, and the Section 125 plan. Okay, the long-term debt in Note E, you have the water issue that was refunded, issued in 2012 at 2.75%. The amount still outstanding at the end of 24 is $1,758,000. That's paid out of the water fund, the principal and district payments come out of the water fund. The other item there is the loan the state made to Greensburg is a 15% local assistance project in relation to the tornado, and that loan balance was $2,075,000. The terms of that loan have never been addressed by the state, and there's no repayment terms or interest rate associated with it, but it still is out there. The maturity of the water bond issue is shown there at the bottom of page 11. You see the principal and interest amounts due for the next 5 years and then 5-year increments thereafter. The other long-term debt you have is through the Public Building Commission. That's paid through from the big well. The big well makes the rent payment to the PBC, and then that fund makes the actual payment. So the amount that's outstanding at the end of the year was $565,000, and you can see the amortization of that loan there on page 12. The as far as interfund transfers, in Note G, you can see the amounts transferred to the primarily reserve funds or other funds from the general, the big well, incubator, electric transfers, and water, sewer, and sanitation transfers. So just a listing there of the transfers that were made. Those are included in expenditures, even though you still have the money. But as far as the reporting model, they are included in expenditures, and and they're also shown as a revenue. So the net effect is zero, but they do show up in revenues and expenditures for the appropriate funds. Capital project, there was a little bit left there on that airport utility improvement. Is pretty well completed at the end of the year. And that's pretty much it for the notes. On page 15 is the summary of the budget compared to actual expenditures for the budgeted funds. Your total budget for the city was $4,670,000. Actual expenditures were $3,807,000, so you're $863,000 under budget. You can see the variances there on the far right column. General fund is under budget $156,000. City tax and infrastructure is under quite a bit, $520,000. The rest of them are quite a bit close. Utility funds are all fairly close to budget, only $2,000 to $6,000 amounts there that were under budget, so, but no budget violations, so no problems there. The general fund is the first individual fund. You'll see on page 16 of the way this statement is set up. We show the actual revenues and expenditures in the first column for 2023, and the actual for 24 is shown there compared to the amount budgeted and then the variance. So as far as the revenues portion of the general fund, most of the amounts budgeted are relatively close, except you see the fines, municipal court fines were only 62,000. In 23, they were 159,000. We budgeted 200, so you're well under budget, but well under the prior year. As far as the other major difference, transfer of the electric fund, we budgeted 50,000. You actually transferred 150. So those are the two major differences there in the revenue side. As far as expenditures are concerned, and keep in mind if there's a unfavorable variance for a line item or for a department, that's not contrary to budget law. It's not a statutory violation. It's only if the total of the fund is in excess of the amount budgeted. So if you see some differences there or negative or unfavorable variances, those aren't considered a statutory violation. So if you kind of compare those for 23 to 24 and the budget, so the general government actually spent a little bit less in 24 than 23. Police department was a little more in 24 than 23, but still within the amount budgeted. Fire department pretty close to year over year, but well under budget. And street department was a decrease from 23, but under the amount budgeted. And you see the same thing on the next page for the park, the swimming pool, the airport, and the court, industrial park. So as far as the transfers that were budgeted, those are the only one that was budgeted was the economic development. We actually transferred 20,000 more. The other transfers weren't budgeted, but that's okay as long as they're within the total of the general fund. So anyway, you see the revenues exceeded expenditures about 99,000 for the year. So we leave 71,000 unencumbered cash at the end of 2024. The infrastructure fund receives half of the local sales tax, and you also transfer $30,000 to that fund from the general. Net expenditures pretty comparable to prior year, 69,000, and net increase in revenues over expenditures of 72,000. So that one actually increased in equity. The big well fund gets the other half of the sales tax on page 19. Also have merchandise sales and admissions, which were up a little bit from the prior year, a little bit more than budgeted. Expenditures, 189,000. It's actually a little bit less than we spent in 2023. So that one also had an increase in equity. The fire equipment reserve fund, really the only activity there is a transfer from the general fund, so it's got 68,000 at the end of 24. The Park and Recreation Fund receives alcohol tax money from the state. That's $571. That's the only activity in that fund, so about $16,000 in there. The Special Highway Fund receives gas tax money from the state of Kansas, and it's about $19,000 each year. You did spend $10,000 out of there, so you did increase your unencumbered cash up to about $15,000. And the Incubator Fund receives grants. That fund is doing a lot better in the last few years. Did have a little bit more expense than revenues, but pretty close. And it does have $164,000 in that fund. Tourism Convention receives the transient guest tax, $91,000, a little bit down from the prior year, but much. Expenditures are $65,000. So $215,000 left in there. So that's all the budgeted funds. Then we get into the unbudgeted or non-budgeted special purpose funds on page 25. The main ones there I'll kind of focus on. You can see if you look at the bottom line, you can see the major dollars are in your equipment reserve fund at $180,000 in there. You did spend some money out of there, $62,000 last year. The economic development, building that fund up, $45,000 increase, no expenditures, so it's got $196,000 at the end of the year. The other more significant cash balances in those funds would be again a tornado donation and tornado insurance funds have quite a bit of cash in those. So you got $1,493,000 in non-budgeted special purpose funds and unencumbered cash at the end of the year. The utility funds are budgeted on page 26. The electric utility sales are a little bit less than prior year, but and a little bit less than budgeted, but still $1,624,000 total receipts. We have expenditures of $1,826,000, but keep in mind $255,000 of that is transfers to other funds, so it's really not expanded. You just move it from this fund to the other funds, being the general, the electric reserve, and the building maintenance fund. So actually, take that into consideration. Have a bit of an increase in equity. Your net decrease was $202,000. If you add back the $255,000 transfers, you had about $50,000 net increase there as far as the operating part of the utility fund. The water utility fund revenues were pretty comparable to the prior year, $315,000. Expenditures of $371,000. But again, those expenditures include about $47,500 in transfers to reserve funds, and that also includes the principal and interest payment for the GO bond. So that one actually had a little decrease in equity, but still $145,000 at the end of the year. That again was a little bit more than we had anticipated. Sewage disposal fund, revenues are pretty close to the prior year, a little bit more, from $93,000 to $100,000. Expenditures of $97,000, again, transfer $20,500 included in those expenditures. So that fund is operating okay. And then the sanitation fund is collection fees of $136,000, pretty comparable to the prior year. Contractual expenses of $132,000, and then you transfer $5,000 to the general fund. So not much change there in the net expenditures for the year. Then the last part of the report, last page, is the non-budgeted business funds, and these are primarily reserve funds with the exception of a couple, but you've got your electric reserve fund of $564,000 at the end of the year. Water reserve at $77,000. The water principal and interest, that one is actually one of the principal interest actually comes out of it. It gets transferred from the water to here and then paid out here. So not much change well, there's actually no change from the beginning to the end of the year as far as unencumbered cash. And then the sewer replacement is another reserve fund, $126,000, and sanitation capital reserve has $57,000. And the meter deposits are monies that actually belong to your customers, $19,000. So pretty much it in the report. Any questions?
Council, any questions for Mr. Kennedy on our 24 audit? Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Just want to let you know that I am retiring at the end of this year, so.
What?
Congratulations.
You didn't check with us first.
I've heard that before, but usually people say, what took you so long?
I should have.
But anyway,
So we're glad to hear that.
so what I've done is my my clients, I divide them up among 5 or 6 accountants in our office, and so it's not gonna be too big of a burden on anybody. And I think Jeremy Apple he's a partner, and he's got, I don't know, like 15 years of experience or so, I think, so he's been around quite a while. He's a CPA, so he's well qualified. That's what, if you have anybody you'd rather have, that doesn't make any difference to us. We just wanna make sure you're taken care of, and appreciate your business.
Well, your firm has worked with the city for a lot of years, and we appreciate everything
You
you've
know,
helped
and
us with.
I thought about that, and I was trying to remember when it all started, but only thing I can remember was Clay Smith was the city clerk, so that goes back a long time. And he was clerk for quite a few years while we did that, so it's been quite a long time, so.
Well, we wish you well in your retirement.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we appreciate
You bet.
everything that you do for us. You're a great client, so. Anyway, but again, we'll be working on the budget here the next couple of weeks or so. I haven't seen any, I don't think, maybe you've gotten evaluation numbers, I don't know. I haven't seen anything from any of the county clerks, so they're not actually, I think they're supposed to have those out.
June 15th?
Or 15th, yeah. Yeah, they're supposed to have it by the 5th, and sort of they have to
Yeah.
distribute that info to you by the 15th.
Yeah.
And then, so we got kind of a short window there to, about a month or so roughly, to get everything figured out, so that'll be the next step, so. Anyway, appreciate it, and we'll be in touch on the budget, okay?
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is business park letter of intent. Stacy, can you tell
Yes.
us that?
Ryan Stapleton with Stayterra Ag was going to come tonight, but lives in Meade and called shortly before the meeting, and with the weather impending, decided that he'd rather not come tonight. He will try to come to the next meeting, though. He put that on his calendar. The city's been in conversations with Stayterra for some time now about development at the business park and developing a manufacturing facility, and they have asked to execute a letter of intent with the city for that development, and you'll see that letter in your agenda packet. This has already been approved and signed by Stayterra Ag, by their partners, and Clayton has also taken a look at it. It outlines the incentives that the city council already approved last year and that we've been discussing with them. So I would leave that for your review tonight. You can choose to adopt it if you feel comfortable in doing so. If you'd like to table it until the next meeting when they can be here, that's also fine. It really depends on your comfort level at this time, but they have executed the letter on their end.
Council, this is one thing we've been waiting on.
Yeah, I need some champagne.
We do.
Not quite yet. I will say this is kind of a preliminary. There will be a development agreement after this. This is just kind of initial putting things on paper that we agree to these terms, but when it comes time for actual construction and making this happen, there will be a little more extensive development agreement that will be put into place, and that is referenced in this letter of intent. So maybe the champagne can come with that.
Maybe we can share it the next meeting.
Right.
I mean, this is one thing we've been waiting on for a long time and been working on, and it's up to you guys if you would like to table it and accept it next week when your next meeting when he can be here, or don't wait and do it tonight.
They're gonna come next week regardless, right, or next meeting?
Yes. Yes. He said he would come. I said it would be beneficial to come and introduce himself and talk about their business a little bit, so, in person.
I'd be okay with accepting it tonight. Kind of know this is in the works, and, you know, I want them to know that we're serious and we're wanting to partner with them.
I agree with that. You know, we waited a long time. I hate to kick the can anymore and drag our feet, you know, or kind of help them along any way we can.
But still look forward to meeting them in person,
Yes.
you know.
So I assume we need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to
Accept the letter of intent.
accept the letter of intent for the business park.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the business park letter of intent with Statera Ag. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Our third item of business is tornado donation discussion.
The mayor and I just wanted to bring this up. We've both been contacted by individuals from Grinnell and Plevna, Kansas, that were recently hit by tornadoes, and I know here in the county we also had some damage. But it just sparked a conversation that, you know, what could we do to help them? And even though it may not be a lot monetarily, is there something that we could assist them with? And I know in the past when Ashland had the fire in 2017, $5,000 was donated to the Ashland Community Foundation from the city. So this is not something we haven't done before, but both of them are very small communities. Grinnell's 300 or less, Plevna's less than 100, very small, and I know they're experiencing, well, a lot of various challenges. And the mayor's reached out to, he had spoken with a councilman from Grinnell that had reached out, and he's reached back out to him and is also trying to make contact with the city of Plevna to see if there's a certain thing that we could give to, a certain project that really needs help. So he was gonna let me know if he heard back from them, and he hasn't yet. So I just wanted to bring it to the table for your discussion to see if there's any interest in doing that and what that might look like. So I'll open it to your discussion.
We have, if we would decide to make a monetary donation to each of these communities, that would come out of our,
I think it could come out of our donation fund. We could pay it forward.
Sure.
We do have a healthy balance there. I think about 100, maybe a little more than that actually.
Yeah, I think that, isn't it, it would make sense for it to come out of that. It was donated to us for those purposes, and then we're just kind of,
we're kind of setting
Paying
on it
it
right now.
forward,
Let's,
yeah.
yeah, let's let somebody else
they can
utilize
use it immediately.
We don't have any old equipment that they could benefit from, do we?
Not that they could benefit from, I don't think.
We kind of thinned that out
Yeah,
a year
that's
or
what I
so
was
ago.
Regift some donated.
To pass along equipment, yeah.
I don't know that that would be a beneficial donation.
You know, we don't know how many of those people might have came here and helped us, you know, and I think it's only fair that we all get together and help each other if we can in some way, shape, or form, so.
Would the thought be 5,000 for each community, just based off the Ashland?
Yeah, if I was gonna throw a number out, that's what I would say.
Past history is what we.
Yeah, I know it's not a lot and it won't go far, but it's something.
Something.
You know, to a small community like that, that might be a shot in the arm in a certain place for them, too.
I know I've seen on the news, Plevna, they have a city-owned building that was uninsured just because of its age, and they're trying to get a roof on it. So that's potentially one thing it could help towards.
I always think back to our tornado, and there was not a whole lot going on in the entire country for weeks after it happened, and we had so much attention given to us, that we just had such an outpouring, and I don't feel like other communities,
Get the
based
same.
on what's going on in the world, get that same, you know, that we did, that we were very fortunate for, so
Yeah.
I would be in favor of, making a financial donation of $5,000 to, both Grinnell and Plevna from the tornado donation fund.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to donate $5,000 each to the cities of Plevna and Grinnell, Kansas, coming out of the tornado donation fund. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
City staff reports.
Today at noon, filings closed for upcoming local elections. Candidates that have filed for the 3 Greensburg City Council seats are David Vernon, Nathan Charlton, Mary Reset, Doug Ulrich, and Jeannie Finch. There will not be a primary because there weren't enough candidates to trigger a primary to be held. And so the general election won't be until Tuesday, November 4th, so we have a while to wait. These positions then will begin their terms on the second Monday of January. And then I've included a list of the other Kiowa County local positions that are open and the filings for those. I won't read them for you. On Saturday, late afternoon, there was a power pole hit behind what is now the 2 county sheds behind the car wash, hit by a vehicle, and it was leaning and took out the power to part of town over on the east side. On Saturday, our crew was able to respond and just temporarily use the digger truck to hold it and was able to restore power pretty quickly. And then they've been working today to get that pole replaced, and everybody's back on except for the 2 county sheds and the car wash, and both of those owners have been notified and it's okay. So all those residents are back on. Our public works crew has also been mowing with this rain. There's been plenty of that to do. Spraying cracks in the streets for weeds. You've probably seen some blue around on the streets. And working on pulling weeds on Main Street. And Christy and I put this in my report so that we will make it so. We have some flowers to plant on Main Street this week. So since it's in my report, we got to get it done. The pool finally opened on Friday after weather delays earlier in the week, and it was a good opening weekend. It's looking like the next 2 days we may also have some weather to contend with, and so it wouldn't surprise me if the pool's closed the next 2 days. Next week, Sunday through Thursday, I'll be going with KPP Energy to the American Public Power Association National Conference, and then we'll be back in the office on Friday, June 13th. That's what I got.
Questions or comments for Stacy?
I just had a question on the Facebook post from the clerk's office that also had Jason West listed as a.
Did I miss it? That is my mistake, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Jason West, yes, also filed. There were 6 candidates. That is my mistake.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I have a question. How did your meeting go with the contractor at the airport?
Good. Everybody got on the same page. Lochner was here and the contractor, 3 guys from that, and went over the plans and walked the site. Both, we started at the terminal area and then moved down to where the well and the well house will be and everything. Stepped that off. They did some measuring and talked about, I think initially there was maybe some thought that instead of trenching in the lines, they would dig, and maybe that was part of your question from the last meeting.
Yeah.
But I think now they've moved to trenching, but I told them, you know, when you're ready to start, I will either, if it's high, have it hayed, or we'll go out and mow a strip, whichever needs to happen to make sure that that's accessible. That they just needed to let us know.
They're not gonna do something till probably like August is when the well guy.
That's when the well guy can come, but it sounds like the contractor after harvest in July will start on the water and septic portion of it. They can get started, they don't have to wait for the well. And I didn't realize this until being out there, where the test well is now north of that access road.
Mhm.
The well's actually gonna be south of that.
Oh, really?
So it's basically, it's a brand new well, it's a whole nother well. So that one was just a test well, and so that will be abandoned and there will be a new well dug.
That explains some of the dimensions that they were talking about.
Yes.
You know.
And so it'll be, not as far to run,
Right.
both to get to power too,
Sure.
where the, transformer is and the meter.
Well, good.
Yeah, it was a good meeting.
Any other questions, comments?
On this Saturday at 3 o'clock, there's gonna be some football games happening in town. If anybody's interested in coming out, there's 2 teams from Colorado and East and West, and then a team from Texas, and then a Kansas. It's a 6-man all-star games. So I think the games are at 3 and 7, I think.
Yeah.
But
And high school boys basketball tournament Friday, Saturday, so it's gonna be busy down there.
a lot going on.
Yeah.
Any other governing body comments? If not, meeting adjourned. Darn it.
You wanted us to last longer?